Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the Eagle of the Apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. I just finished watching the official signing of the Abraham Accords at the White House with President Trump, with Benjamin Netanyahu, and the leaders of Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. And this is very significant because it is a fulfillment of Daniel chapter number 9. Daniel 9, as you know, is all about the end times nation of Israel. It is a warning to Israel. And Daniel 9 has been misinterpreted for decades, maybe even centuries. And the false prophets have been telling you for all that time that the one who signs a peace treaty with Israel in the end times is the Antichrist. And that is a huge mistake. These accords that we saw being signed this morning, they are a fulfillment of Daniel 9, 26 and 27. However, it is not the evil person who signs these peace treaties. It is the good guy. It's the Anointed One. It's the Mashiach of these end times. And I have told you for quite a while, I believe that is Benjamin Netanyahu, or it could be President Trump. In any event, let me read to you what a lot of others are saying, and it reminds me also of St. Paul in First Thessalonians 4, and this is First Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 2 and 3. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord shall so come as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and security, then shall sudden destruction come upon them, as the pains upon her that is with child, and they shall not escape. Daniel says the exact same thing in his chapter number 9, warning Israel. And this is the warning that Jesus refers to in the Olivet Discourse when he talks about the abomination of desolation. And I'll show you what that is in just a minute in Daniel 9. First, I want to read two verses in Daniel 9, chapters 11 and 12, which explain why Israel is going to be chastised in these end times, and I believe very soon, and as a result of this Abraham Accord, verse number 11. And all Israel have transgressed thy law, and have turned away from hearing thy voice. And the malediction and the curse which is written in the book of Moses, the servant of God, is fallen upon us, because we have sinned against him. This is what is going to bring the destruction upon Israel, and what Jesus is warned about when he said, when you see the abomination of desolation, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. This is what is coming upon Israel. And I'm a watchman on the wall. And if I do not warn you, your blood will be on my hands. I don't like doing this any more than I like warning anyone else. It's not a pleasant duty. I get reviled for it. But it's the truth, and I have to do it. The next verse actually tells the same story. Verse number 12. And he has confirmed his words which he spoke against us and against our princes that judged us, that he would bring in upon us a great evil, such as never was under all the heaven, according to that which has been done in Jerusalem. This punishment is going to come upon Jerusalem, and by extension, all of Israel. The next two important verses in Daniel 9, which refers to the same coming destruction, is a lament by Daniel as he mourns for the modern nation of Israel. Here's what he says, verses number 16 and 17. O Lord, against all thy justice, let thy wrath and thy indignation be turned away. I beseech thee from thy city Jerusalem and from the holy mountain. For by reason of our sins and the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and all thy people are a reproach to all that are around about us. And that includes all of the Arab nations surrounding Israel. Israel will be ruled by her enemies. That is the result of the covenant that we spoke about in verses 11 and 12. The Lord's covenant with Israel is that if she disobeys Torah, goes against, for example, the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, then they will be ruled by their enemies. This is not Netanyahu's fault. He is trying to bring peace to Israel. He is affirming the Abrahamic covenant, and that is that the land of Canaan would be willed to Israel and the descendants of Abraham. However, that may come true, but the land which the Jews occupy can very well be ruled by her enemies, as prophesied. Let's read verse number 17. Now therefore, O our God, hear the supplication of thy servant and his prayers, and show thy face upon the sanctuary which is desolate, for thy own sake. The sanctuary will be desolate. That is, Judaism will not be allowed to be practiced in Israel when she is ruled by her enemies. That's the abomination of desolation that Jesus warned about. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And now I want to explain to you Daniel 9, 26 and 27. The false prophets are not going to explain this to you because they don't understand it. They don't understand that you have to unseal Daniel before you can interpret him. Daniel 9, 26. And after 62 weeks, the Anointed One shall be cut off, but not for himself. In the near time, that was Jesus. In the end times, I believe that refers to the martyrdom of Benjamin Netanyahu, or perhaps Donald Trump. Whoever this Anointed One who is affirming that the land of Canaan would be given to the descendants of Israel in perpetuity. And verse 9:27 tells the exact same story. This is where the false prophets get it wrong. And he shall confirm the covenant with many in 1 week. That's what we saw this morning. The confirming of this Abrahamic covenant. That Israel would be safe and secure, as Benjamin Netanyahu promises us. But he doesn't understand what comes next. What comes next we find in the next part of both 9:26 and 27. And a people of the prince who shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. This is what's next. This is coming immediately, if not sooner. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. This means Judaism will not be allowed in Israel. That is what comes after the confirming of the covenant. And verses 26 and 27 continue. Notice these two verses are telling the exact same story. This is what the false prophets lead you astray on. And they will pay dearly for leading you astray. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and there shall be in the temple the abomination of desolation. That's when the Jews have to flee to the mountain. And after the end of the war, the appointed desolation, and the desolation shall continue even to the consummation and to the end. Now these words from Daniel are often overlooked. The confirming of the covenant is not by the Antichrist. It's by the good guy in Daniel 9:26 and 27. If not Netanyahu, possibly President Trump. Whoever it is, we saw that confirming of the covenant this morning, the Abraham Accord. What the false prophets don't tell you is that immediately after this, then the people of the prince who shall come shall destroy the city in Israel. And that's what Daniel laments about in verses 16 and 17. So I am here to warn you because no one else is warning you, but that's been my fate from the Lord from the beginning of my ministry here on YouTube, 12 years ago now. And I have explained this, Daniel 9:27 and 26, many times. Those two verses tell the same story. The false prophets don't understand that. And I would like to get maybe more chances to tell you the same story, but there won't be many more, unfortunately. So until I see all of you again, may God bless all of you.